morning. It is Friday, December 19th, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Netanyahu warns that the Palestinians' UN move will lead to a Hamas takeover of the West Bank. America is up in arms after Sony Pictures scrapped the release of the controversial comedy The Interview and blamed North Korea for it. And later on the show, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announces their class of stars for 2015. We'll take a closer look. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi, and we begin with the fallout from the Palestinian resolution submission to the UN Security Council, calling for a timetable of negotiations and an end to the Israeli occupation of the West Bank. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel would never accept the unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state. In a statement from his office, Netanyahu accused Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas of thinking he can threaten Israel by taking unilateral steps over statehood. He continued to warn that the one-sided steps will lead to Hamas's takeover of the West Bank. Now, the Palestinian Draft Resolution submitted on Wednesday to the UN in New York sets a 12-month deadline for wrapping up negotiations on a final settlement and the end of 2017 as the time frame for completing an Israeli withdrawal from the Palestinian territories. A final peace deal, according to that resolution, would pave the way to a creation of a Palestinian state with Jerusalem as a shared capital, according to the text. Needless to say that not just Netanyahu, but also Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman played down the chances of the Palestinians' UN bid achieving a breakthrough, saying it will amount to nothing without Israel's agreement. To discuss this unpromising Palestinian push for peace, we are joined in studio by member of Fatah Revolutionary Council, Dimitri Diliani. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks.
And by former Foreign Minister and former Ambassador to the United States, Dania Yalon. Good morning to you. And of course also by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev.
Good morning.
Good morning. Before we break it down, let's take a look at the following report that recaps the week that was definitely the Palestinian-Israeli conflict week in this region.
Only hours after the wave of pro-Palestinian votes in European institutions and after threatening to do so many times in the past, Jordan has submitted a draft resolution to the UN Security Council on behalf of the Palestinians on ending what it defines as Israel's occupation of Palestinian lands captured in 1967.
This assures the two-state solution, which should be on the 1967 borders, and Jerusalem as the capital for the two states, with East Jerusalem as the capital for the state of Palestine.
The Israeli response was interesting, as Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman first described the bid as a Palestinian gimmick and then called on the Palestinians to come back to the negotiating table.
We hope that Palestinians will be ready to come back to the table to negotiate our relations, and only during negotiations it's possible to achieve a comprehensive solution.
Discussions on the draft could take weeks, and it still remains to be seen if the U.S. will use its Security Council veto to foil the move. In the Gaza Strip, meanwhile, Hamas held its biggest military exercise since the end of the 50-day war in the summer. Since an Egyptian broker ceasefire ended Operation Protective Edge, Hamas has often test-fired rockets into the Mediterranean Sea, suggesting it is making efforts to rearm. Separately, Palestinian sources reported that a member of Hamas's military wing was killed and 4 others were injured in an explosion in Rafah in the southern Gaza Strip on Thursday. According to the reports, the explosion was likely due to a work accident while assembling a bomb.
Joined in studio, as we said, in studio by Dimitri Diliani, I'm a member of the Fatah Revolutionary Council. I want to start with you and wonder out loud. Does anybody in the Palestinian Authority really think that this is going to work?
Yes, actually, it did work so far. We do not, you see, the Israeli politicians try to make this look like it's a threat, because that's what the right wing in Israel thrives on, making people afraid. What we are doing, we just taken our case to the world after all doors were shut by Netanyahu and his crew. So what this really is, trying to get the world in to join with us and in favor of the Palestinian people and the Israeli people to achieve peace, because the Israeli right-wing government is not making any move. They claim before they can manage this conflict, and so far They did not. Netanyahu claimed that he can manage the economy, the Israeli economy, and he failed. He said he can manage security, and he failed. He failed in everything, and this is the world's stance
But how does a
on this
unilateral
diplomatic issue.
move push anybody towards
It's not-
negotiations?
It's not a unilateral move. We are going to the world. What's unilateral is building illegal settlements. What's unilateral is bombing Gazan civilians. That's unilateral crimes. But going to the world and going to an international platform could not be in any rational way be depicted as unilateral, because we're going to the rest of the world, to everybody. This is not unilateral.
I'm wondering a lot with you, Daniel Elon, former Israeli ambassador to the United States. Doesn't this, though, also jeopardize the negotiations down the line, because it's taking one step away from what everybody wants to see? I mean, we have to call a spade. Talchila will agree with me. There are no negotiations going on right now. There haven't been negotiations going on for the past umpteen months.
Absolutely. I mean, talking about shutting doors, the Palestinians have been known to shut doors all along. Even for Netanyahu, was the Bar Ilan speech, was the freeze of settlements, there was the withdrawal from Gaza. Doors were shut by the Palestinians all the way from 47 until now, so they have only to blame themselves. Even with the carry negotiations, Netanyahu was on the verge of agreeing to a basis of 67 with swaps. He asked only one thing, just to assure ourselves that there is really an end on conflict, an end of claims, recognizing Israel as the Jewish state. Of course, Abbas didn't want to do that. He said in 1,000 years he will not recognize Israel as the home for the Jewish people. That's not how you base real good foundations for peace and reconciliations. So by going to the UN, I think the Palestinians themselves know that the Palestinian state will only be founded here in negotiations between Jerusalem and Ramallah, not in New York, not in Brussels, not in anywhere else. Probably it's something that of a political move where Abbas has to compete on the Palestinians' minds and hearts vis-a-vis Hamas.
Is this for the Palestinian people only?
No. This is the you see, for the right wing in Israel that is politically bankrupt, morally bankrupt. All they can do is just twist the facts and twist history like your guest just did. What he did right now, he said that settlement freeze. They had a freeze for 3 months, and it was not a freeze. It was freeze in some points for only 3 months. But settlement activity was. I don't want to go run down because this would take us hours to really fix what he just gave in wrong, twisted messages.
All of us are here. We can speak with each other.
So I'll ask you, if we remove all the settlements, Israel has, like in Gaza, we removed all the settlements, of course, except the
in Gaza was unilateral withdrawal. The same thing you're criticizing.
Bibi Netanyahu agreed to move most of the settlements with the swaps.
Yes.
Will you recognize Israel as the homeland of the Jewish people?
We have recognized the state of Israel in '88. Hold on.
Will you do it again?
Hold on. And right now, I tell you, we do recognize the state of Israel. It's your turn, your time to recognize the state of Palestine. You want to call it Jewish state? Go to the United Nations, change your name. It's up to you. It's not me.
There's much more than that. There is
Why
something.
you asking
the
me?
Palestinians are playing again a double game. I'm not talking about Hamas, who openly talks about, and last week they talk about the destruction of the state of Israel, that they will never recognize it.
Would you ask France to recognize you as? Would you ask France to recognize you as a Jewish state? Would you ask the UK? Would you ask Japan?
No,
would you ask
because
China?
they don't threaten us. You threaten us. They don't threaten us. You want the Galilee. You want the Negev. You want Tel Aviv. This is what you teach your children. When you stop that, we will not ask you.
We're going to keep it civil. Everybody's and each one is going to to speak at their time.
Yael, you started it. We can speak to each other.
And we will speak to each other. And definitely, I started it. It's all my fault. I'm going to resolve the Middle East issue as well. But I want to touch on Hamas as well for a second, okay? Let's start with that. When Netanyahu says, when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as a statement that was released yesterday, says that when the West Bank, is risking, when a move as such is happening, that it's risking the West Bank falling into the hands of Hamas as well.
Where is the rationale in such a cliche? This is again feeding. He's speaking to the
Hamas
Israeli
also
public
gaining
in
traction
cliches.
in the West Bank?
No,
I mean,
they're
that is
not.
also a fact in many ways.
Hamas has lost every election, free election that happened, whether it was unions, student unions, anything that is in the West Bank and Gaza too. Hamas has been losing. Hamas is moving up a notch due to the war against Gaza because of Benjamin Netanyahu decided to declare Hamas as an enemy. That made them gain popularity. But again, the Palestinian street is pretty much stable and Fatah has been winning everything. And at the same time, Israel has been hitting the political platform of Fatah in the heart again and again and again by not moving with the peace process. So you're giving the Palestinian people a message. Fatah that wants peace, we are failing their political platform, we are failing their program, and at the same time, Hamas are such bad guys, we are hitting them. In fact, what you're telling the Palestinians, we are encouraging the military resolution of the conflict. And this is exactly what keeps Israel in the hands of the right-wing gang, installing fear, more blood, more conflict, and making things look like they are the victims while they are not.
Okay, well, Talsha, because there's another woman in the studio. Yes.
A question for Mr. Diliani, but it's clear that the Palestinian interest would actually be that Netanyahu lose these elections and go away. While you're bringing up this unilateral move or international move these days, this timing, it only helps strengthen Netanyahu. It only gives him the platform to give these kind of very harsh statements, to appeal to his right-wing constituents.
To try and switch it as a threat.
And it also brings up a diplomatic and security agenda, one that he's much stronger on relatively to a socio-economic agenda. So it could be counter-effective. Why not wait until after the elections, see if Netanyahu is elected again, and then move forward?
Well, in principle, we do not build our political program based on Israeli internal agendas. But at the same time, we are very careful in not benefiting whoever doesn't want peace. It's nothing against Netanyahu. It's against the camp that doesn't want peace. But we trust that the Israeli public has a responsibility to know that whoever put them is in this situation is the Israeli right led by Netanyahu. Whoever ruined their economy is Netanyahu. Whoever make him feel insecure is Netanyahu. At the end of the day, whoever responsible for these issues is the prime minister and the government, not the Palestinian people who are weak and sitting under occupation. The Israeli public has a responsibility to realize. And this election, yes, the Israeli vote will affect this region. There is a great deal that will come out of this because, as you can see, politically, diplomatically, Israel is becoming more isolated, economically paying the price, and in terms of security, Israelis fear just as much as the Palestinians are fearing now.
I want to touch on that point, actually, with Ambassador Ayalon, former ambassador of the United States. You know, the isolation is something that we can't disregard. And when it comes to Israel, clearly it's not in a great standpoint internationally. I don't think we can hide that. When it comes to this type of a move, you know, what was interesting to me was that there was no real condemnation. It hasn't been vetoed yet. Obviously, there's a process by the United States. But the whole push throughout the week show that the United States is even considering maybe not vetoing it. So how does that project in Israel? And isn't Israel actually in one of its worst standing points in the international arena?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I, for one, believe that we should get out of the box and be creative in our foreign policy. And we have not been. This is a different issue. Not to say that, of course, the Palestinians are not helping. By the way, I do believe Hamas doesn't need elections to take over the West Bank. They didn't elections to take over in a coup in 2007 Gaza. And without Israeli presence, security and intelligence presence, Abbas would not be in Ramallah now. Hamas would have taken over.
Absolutely not.
Hamas would have taken over. But I would like to say, just one second, I would say that in terms of where Israel is now, certainly we need to respond. The United States, now I'll put an analyst. I think the United States is waiting on two things. First of all, they would like to let Netanyahu sweat now for many reasons. Secondly, they're not going to vote with the Palestinians. They will officially now, they're waiting to see what the text will be. The text will be more balanced. But I don't think it's within the interest of the United States, their own selfish interest of the United States, to relinquish or to give up their trump card of being the mediator and give it to the international community or the Security Council. There is no lost love between the U.S. and the UN. So they will keep doing what they do, but I don't think that they will allow the Security Council to take over. So I would think that the Palestinians, again, will have to hear and face the reality. You want your state, come over to Jerusalem, negotiate in good faith, and be willing to reconcile and give up all your ideas of salami, of taking over Tel Aviv, and many
Nobody's
other things that
gonna
you're
take
still
over
believing
Tel
in.
Aviv. No, look, I mean, these cliches, everybody's tired of them. I mean, even the Europeans are tired of them. And if you think that the Europeans are taking these steps without the consent of the United States, you are majorly wrong. This is an international move to tell the Israeli government that we are sick and tired of playing cliches instead of taking actual steps. It's time for the Israeli people to tell their government we're sick and tired of cliches. We have recognized this state of Israel. We have security coordination still going on, despite that your army is killing our people. We are keen to hold this agreement. Hold on, we are keen to hold this agreement in practice, while you are not. Your government is not. We recognize the state of Israel in 1988 for nothing in return. Since 1988, you have failed to recognize the state of Palestine.
I'm wondering out loud, though, if this move does not work, and obviously, I think we all are in agreement that most likely it will not pass. You know, probably will not pass. What's the next move?
Well, it's been clear. We said we have steps to take. We will go to Security Council. Doesn't work, we're going to join the ICC and other UN organizations and put the pressure through these organizations according to international law that is applied everywhere else in the world except for here. And this would be the next step. What is the third step? I see if that doesn't work, third step is we tell Israel, take responsibility for occupation. We'll dismantle the PA and come and deal with us. No agreements, no security coordination, and come deal with us face to face. Because as Palestinian people, we have had it. And then we will be working towards peaceful resistance in order to get our rights, equal rights in one state, not binational state, one state, and then this will be the end of Zionism as you know it. Two states saves Zionism, one state destroys it.
I'm afraid these are just hollow threats. It's like someone threatening the other one. If you don't do what I want to do, I will chop my own head. This is what the Palestinians are saying by dissolving. They will never dissolve. They are dependent upon that. There is now cronyising of, there are 200,000 families in the Middle East which are dependent upon the Palestinian Authority, and I don't think that they will do it. Also, if they stop the cooperation, security cooperation, then they get Hamas there in the next morning. There is another option. I'm sorry, there is another option that I didn't hear from Mr. Dilani, is that we will sit, in good faith, without preconditions, and negotiate with you earnestly until we get what we need and you get what you need. And the equation or the exchange is very, very simple. Recognition and security for Israel.
We have recognized,
no,
we
you have
do
not.
security.
You have not. You have not recognized.
I want to ask you now, but before we move on, and I would love for you guys to maybe stay in the studio, because we're going to move on in a second to the lovely Tal Shalev. But I want to ask something, and it's the most naive question, and don't tell me how it's going to be done. Do you believe peace is possible?
The keys are in the hand of the Israeli public.
Do you believe peace is possible?
I believe that the Israeli public is smarter and wiser than his government. It's time for the Israeli public to get rid of these fanatics, put them in their place, and not house or something, but not on podiums.
I think if we move from a zero-sum game to a win-win, if the Palestinians will realize that they have a lot to gain by compromising and by sitting with us, then peace is possible.
If you want for 20 years, you're not serious.
I remain hopeful, because still, each side does believe it's possible.
Absolutely.
In various that may not really, collide together right now, but maybe possibly in the future, because it is Friday, folks. Stick with me as we're moving on to the next subject. Yes, with 86 days left till the elections, Israelis are feeling the pressure from candidates, and possibly also from Mr. Dimitri Giuliani, to swing their way. Polls coming out on a near daily basis, testing the waters of all manners of likely or unlikely political combinations, make predictions all the more hard to make. Expectant leaders are releasing fiery statements, seeking quick rating boosts. Every headline this week is immediately transformed into a political battle. And it will stay that way till March 17th in Israel, when the ballots put an end to it all. But till then, here to help us make sense of it is I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. What was the week that was in politics? But let's start actually with the latest numbers.
Well, let's start with the latest numbers. They reflect what was it was quite a boring week in the Israeli politics, not compared to last week when we had a very exciting, union between Tzipi Livni and Yitzhak Herzog. This week we hasn't had the interesting move of the
Nobody
week
was
yet.
fired. Nobody got married.
Netanyahu was occupied and busy with his international arena and international battle.
Right.
So this is a Globe's newspaper, Rafi Smith pollster poll published yesterday. It looks quite the same like the recent polls we've been seeing. It's the
Right.
same trends in recent weeks. Likud and Labor Tnuah together are
Neck to
both
neck.
23. Then we have the Jewish Home 16. Actually, it's Lieberman and Kachlon, Kulanu, the new party, are 9 mandates
Right.
each. Lapid got 8 mandates, Shas 8, and there are small interesting things going on between inside the right-wing parties and the ultra-Orthodox parties, the Shas party that broke up. Actually, that was the big event of the week, but let's focus on Netanyahu himself.
Because they are calling it the Bibi elections.
It is the Bibi elections, and it will. I think the biggest question of this week will be how will all of this going on in the international community, how will all of this actually influence Netanyahu's standing, and will it actually work the way that the Palestinians and the international community is hoping that it'll work, that it will actually explain or at least exemplify to the Israelis that Netanyahu is leading Israel to international isolation. You know, it's payback time for many leaders in the international community. It's no secret that President Obama, President Hollande, President Mahmoud Abbas will be happy to see Netanyahu sweat, as Ambassador Ayalon mentioned earlier. But it's still a big question. It's still yet to be seen. What does this actually drift the voters away from Netanyahu, or does it give him a chance to give a boost, but also to give very harsh statements? Netanyahu's reactions this week was very harsh language. That today there's a headline in Haaretz, let's vote for the Holocaust, following this soundbite that he gave this week.
Let's have a listen. Hold on. That's Netanyahu.
In Geneva, they call for the investigation of Israel for war crimes, while in Luxembourg, the European Court removed Hamas from the list of terrorist organizations. Hamas that has committed countless war crimes and countless terror acts. It seems that too many in Europe, on whose soil 6 million Jews were slaughtered, have learned nothing. But we in Israel, we've learned. We'll continue to defend our people and our state against the forces of terror and tyranny and
Ambassador Ayalon, I mean, we're here with Tasha, but I have a question just because I'm wondering out loud, and you were in the international arena, you were in the U.S., you faced the world, you know, putting Israelism ideas out. It's a horrible thing to ask that way, but does the Holocaust card, I'm sorry to call it that way, does it still play?
No, and it's demeaning the Holocaust. I think this is the wrong thing to say. It's clearly for domestic purposes only.
Yeah.
But it certainly
No,
is...
straight to the point. Yeah. No,
well, Netanyahu is at this point, you know, where everyone is starting to ask, so where was your initiative? Where was your initiative? But I think in a very weird way, it was a statement I told you about, I reported about it earlier this week, coming from the foreign minister, Avigdor Lieberman, you know, who we've been talking about his new branding. But actually, he had one of the smartest statements this week, saying you cannot lash out at the U.S. all year and slam the U.S. all year, and then come and demand a veto from the American administration. And this is basically the situation that Netanyahu is standing in from. He doesn't have credit in the international community. Many of the leaders there are so frustrated with him and do not believe him at all that they were actually happy to interfere in the elections. They understand they're interfering in the elections.
Usually when Netanyahu portrays an image of the world against him, doesn't that play for his voters? Doesn't that usually do the opposite and plays into the capital of his mandates within the Israeli public?
It does play to his. It does play to his constituents, and interestingly enough, a senior American official I speak to a few days ago actually says something very interesting. It's not Netanyahu's our problem. We don't mind if Netanyahu is the next prime minister. The problem, we don't want the Jewish Home to be in the next coalition. They don't want Naftali Bennett and the right-wing party. That is a real concern from their being happening in the next coalition. They probably understand that in the current coalition, that was the very negative impact on Netanyahu. That was the very negative impact straining Tzipi Livni from moving forward with the negotiation. So it's not all about Netanyahu, even though it's very easy for us journalists to present it like the just not Bibi elections. It's not only about Netanyahu. It's about an agenda. It's about the direction that Israel is heading. But let's move on. Move on, because there are other people we can talk about. Yair Lapid. The big promise of the former election, of the previous elections, a big promise.
Not so much anymore.
Not so much anymore,
Yes.
and he is desperately seeking a significant other to join him. He was courting Tzipi Livni, but he lost that bid to Yitzhak Herzog. So now he's courting he's courting Moshe Kahlon, the former
That's
Likud
the new
minister,
word,
who's
yeah.
on his way back into the political system with his new party Kulanu.
Who's almost like the new Yair Lapid of these elections.
And together they get amazing, they get this amazing result in the poll. That is what Yair Lapid is counting upon. They get 24 recent polls show, an Haaretz poll from earlier this week show,
Right.
they get 24 mandates together, making them the biggest party in the Israeli parliament. So that is what Lapid would like, but actually it's too odd a couple. I wouldn't bet on that happening. But we're still 6 weeks away from finalizing the list.
Anybody
to the Knesset.
can get married. you
Anything
mean.
can happen. But the big star of the week, unfortunately, is Naftali Bennett. He definitely played the move, I think, of the campaign. If something was interesting in the political system this week, was Naftali
It was
Bennett
that.
and his
We
new
have to
video
read-
campaign mocking Tel Avivi
We have to watch a
hipsters.
quick clip of this, maybe, and possibly speak
I
about
would
this.
say the more Israelis hear Dimitri,
Yes.
they would vote for Mr. Bennett.
I'll promise you,
That-
I will stop. If you stop telling lies about us, I'll stop telling the truth about you.
Well, this sounds
Guys,
cute.
that
Sounds
said-
cute, but
that
this is for
said-
the kindergarten,
That's the way it
not
is.
for real life.
But
Maybe
look at
you
that, you're
need
missing
at
out
that
on this
level.
on this clip of Naftali Bennett.
You live in a
You need
virtual
somebody to
reality.
talk to you at that level
If you
to
live
get it
this way, you'll
clearly.
never get a state.
I have to tell you guys though, I think we should make fun of Naftali Bennett because he's making fun of Tel Avivians, and I'm taking this personally.
Yes,
It's
definitely.
essentially-
And he's telling stop apologizing. The critic is about the Israeli left that usually has some kind
Right.
of trend of appeasing the international community. Netanyahu,
Bennett.
Bennett walks around Tel Aviv apologizing to everyone. It has a lot of humor. He's a good actor. Some people have been saying in the past week maybe he should have stayed an actor and not entered the
not
political
enter
system.
politics. One last thing, we've got
one
20,
word
10
of
seconds.
caution about polls.
Yes,
Shimon Peres said, polls are like perfume. They are to smell and not to drink.
and not to drink. Okay, Ambassador Ayalon, Dimitri Giuliani of the Fatah Revolutionary Council, and my one and only I-24 News diplomatic correspondent, Tal Shalev. Thank you for being with me this morning. When we get back, the poverty report of Israel shows that 1.6 million are below the poverty line in 2014. We'll tell you all about it. Let's take a look first. Let's hear a bit more of the morning headlines, and we'll be right back. Good morning, I-24 News Morning Edition, December 19th. Thank you. That would be Ron Friedman, I-24 News editor. This show's editor, Ron Friedman, joins us to discuss the news you missed while scanning the headlines because Tony Grant is in the North Pole on assignment.
That's where he is today.
That's
okay.
where he is today.
Where in the world?
Where in the world is Tony Grant? But news we missed while scanning
All
the
right,
headlines.
so as you said, I'm replacing Tony Grant. Big shoes to fill. Another
Very
man
big.
with a very big pair of shoes.
Shoes.
What do you think I was going to say? Vladimir Putin.
Yes, Putin.
We covered this story a bit earlier this week. The ruble is in free fall. The Russian economy
Demise.
is doing badly.
And actually, I want to say that I'm glad that at the beginning, I didn't see this as a huge story because I'm not as good a journalist as you. And no. And you sold me on the story because it is huge. And Putin actually came out and said what?
So Putin came out yesterday. He gave every year he gives an annual press conference. He spoke for 3 hours. It's the first time 3 hours, and it's the first time he addressed the financial crisis. And of course, he pushed all blame off himself. So none of it has to do with me, and blamed it all on the West, Western sanctions,
of course.
Western hostility to Russia, really bringing back some Cold War language. So, last week he was talking about trying to put the Iron Curtain back in place.
No, what's fascinating about that is because every time we cover this story this week, is that the sanctions maybe had a little bit to do with it, but I think it was Daniel Roth who said it's the oil prices.
Yeah,
it's the oil prices that are dipping. It's not that, and he's giving the White House the gift that they want of basically sitting there in the Oval Office going, it worked.
Right. Well, we don't know if it's working. We'll see if it works. But yesterday he said the West is trying to chain the Russian bear. I guess some people in Russia, are eating it up. I don't know how long it'll last. I don't know how long people there will keep buying it and what it means for
it's not
Putin's
us, it's
future.
them. Yeah, it's the famous line. Okay, what else?
All right, next story coming out of Africa, in Nigeria. Tell me if this sounds familiar. So militants stormed a village in the north. They massacred 33 people and kidnapped 200 more.
200 it's 200 now. Okay.
Yeah, this echoes, back to April's incident with the girls from Chibok. Very
and it's
similar.
Boko Haram, and I think one of the things that we're forgetting in this whole flurry of ISIS, there's another group out there in Africa, the unreported continent, that constantly does these horrific things. Yeah.
Horrific, and let's give you some context of how this happened. So this incident happened on Sunday. This village is so remote that it took survivors till Thursday to get to the nearest city and report the incident. So this is an area where you might assume there'd be, Nigerian military, somebody 4 days before news came out. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. Will we have another Free the Girls campaign for these, 200 other people?
Or free the people, exactly. And the girls, reminding us also that the girls have not been freed yet. That this is an despite several attempts, despite hashtags in the Western world on Twitter. Yes.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
Moving on to Iran. Usually it doesn't get favorable headlines. I don't know if this is favorable, but it's an interesting one. So this week, Iran unveiled a monument for Jewish soldiers, Iranian soldiers who died in the war with Iraq. So we're talking about the 1980 to 88 war with Iraq, where millions of people died on both sides, and apparently some of the soldiers on the Iranian side were Jews. There was a ceremony. They unveiled the monument.
Last Jews of Iran. Just kidding.
There is still a Jewish
there's a Jewish community
there.
Very much so. Definitely. But
and one of the officials who attended the ceremony, the vice speaker of the parliament, he actually took the opportunity to praise the Jewish community in Iran for its support of the government. The community there is...
I'm just saying, and thank you for your support, which you should continue.
Right. He also praised them for denouncing U.S. demands on Iran. And denouncing the violent and inhumane, quote, behavior by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So he's putting them firmly on the Iranian side.
Whether they like it or not.
We'll see.
And
next up, we have a story from The Guardian. This is an Indian story, science story. India blasted its largest ever rocket into space. Now, it was an unmanned rocket, but they believe that they can use the same technology for manned missions. Everybody in India is excited. This is the Indian Space and Research Organization.
I know, but I gotta say that the headline looks like India's attacking the moon. We're gonna blow up the moon. Okay, but India blasts biggest rocket into space. Okay, we're gonna take on Mars.
It's an achievement. They've already taken on Mars. They sent a probe there. In that way, they're advancing ahead of developed countries.
It's also the year that the Chinese are trying to up the ante, so to speak, when it comes to the space.
A second space race, new players in the space race.
Because the Americans have given up in many ways.
Well, we'll get to that. There was a story earlier this week that NASA actually received more funding than it was expecting, so maybe they're getting back in the race. Interesting developments there. Does the name Tsarnaev say anything to you?
Boston.
Yes. So
I sometimes read the news.
Yeah, we're talking about Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. For everybody who might have forgotten, he's the man alleged to be the Boston bomber that killed 3 people, injured hundreds more. Anyways, he hasn't been seen since his arrest.
Since the actual incident and the arrest.
And yesterday he was seen in court for the first time after almost a year and a half. He had a procedural hearing before his trial actually starts in January 5th. There wasn't much in the hearing itself as far as his case, but there was a little incident there. Somebody came out and supported him. Shouted out in the courtroom. We believe in you. Don't give up. It was upsetting, for the public, and it was upsetting especially for the families of the victims.
And I think one of the oddest thing. Well, it's not the oddest thing, but I think it shook America so much because it was very 9/11 reminiscent, but very different also in many ways. So at least this is a trial that has it's just begun, no? In many ways.
The trial starts formally on January 5th. I'm guessing we'll get a lot of new information out of there. It's and this is. Remember, this kid originally from Chechnya, right?
Yeah, Eastern Europe.
But grew up in America. Another case of homegrown
violence right within. You don't need them, to come from overseas anymore. And one last one.
We've got El Arabiya is reporting on developing case in Turkey. Earlier this week or on Sunday, Erdogan's authorities cracked down on a couple of major media networks.
We've got the free democracy that is Turkey.
Yeah, we've got the Zaman Daily newspaper, very popular daily, and the Samanyolu TV network, their executives, as well as other journalists.
So he's going to charge journalists with terror group membership, essentially.
Yes, and slander.
And slander.
Yes,
but it's terror and slander.
This is reminiscent of what happened in Egypt earlier this year with Al Jazeera reporters.
Still in jail. Glad you mentioned that. Very much an ongoing story in Egypt and now happening in Turkey as well. It's a frightening thing for our profession, I think, that this is happening in the 21st century. Ron Friedman, thank you. You will be with us for something much more important in the second hour of the show. Thank you.
Look forward to it.
On to our next topic. Israel's National Insurance Institution report was released earlier this week, revealing that 1.6 million people, half of them children, were living in poverty in 2013, out of a total population of 8 million. The report, which was based on the Central Bureau of Statistics data, found that while the poverty level in Israel slightly decreased in 2013, it still had more poverty and wider social-economic gaps compared to nearly every other country in the OECD. We are joined in studio by the researcher at the Taub Center, Eitan Regev. Eitan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And thank you for being with us. And before we break it down, let's take a look at the next report and break it down from there.
My husband and I are both hardworking people who wake up every morning and work at 2 jobs, but still can't make ends meet.
This woman has been working a full-time job, but her financial situation can't seem to improve.
I can't pay my electricity and water bills. We can't meet rent. The school doesn't receive payments. We can't afford it, me or my husband.
She represents the bottom line of the annual Israeli Poverty Report that was released earlier this week. Whether you work or not, nearly every family in Israel can't make ends meet. 80% of Israeli households are at a constant overdraft of 1,000 shekels on average. According to the report, high housing costs are the main burden. Between 2007 and 2013, prices rose by 53%, and accordingly, the rate of debt on mortgages ballooned from 180 billion shekels to 280 billion. The report also found that expenditure on household goods has also climbed in recent years, from below the OECD average in 2005 to well over it this year. The conclusion of the report determines that the gap between the poor and middle class in Israel has narrowed, while that between the middle and upper class has widened. 1 of 6 senior citizens in the country live below the poverty lines, according to the report, in which it is difficult to find even a glimmer of optimism. With elections around the corner, the report's finding will surely echo during the campaign season.
Joining us via Skype also is the president and senior rabbi at Rabbis for Human Rights, Rabbi Arik Asherman. Good morning to you, Rabbi Asherman.
Good morning.
And you are with us, but I would like to start with Eitan Regev of the Taub Center. What's horrifying to me about this is, first of all, 1.8 million. It's not looking good. And, what are the projections of the Taub Center of any kind of change within this situation?
So we know what the problems are, and we know how they should be dealt with. The problem is we don't have governmental stability. We have a government
It's putting it mildly, yeah.
That's putting it mildly. It's changing every 2 years, and we had some very good reforms that were about to kick in, but once the government collapsed and the budget didn't pass, then we don't know what's going to happen with those reforms. Now, the major expenditure items that are really the burden on the Israeli consumer, we know what they are. They're housing, food, and transportation.
Yeah.
And
life, basically.
Life, basically, these account for 60 to 70% out of total consumption expenditures of the average Israeli household. And for example, in housing, do you know it takes 13 years on average to build building in Israel? 2 years for construction and 11 years for bureaucracy. So.
And the bureaucracy is 11 years. Yeah. Okay. Now, one of the things that, and actually, I'm going to also move to you for a second, Rabbi Aikash. What mind boggles me in this, that everybody speaks security in Israel, but this is as worse as it has gotten. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Exactly. They speak about a decline in the share of poor persons, but poverty line is a relative term. So once the minimum wage has risen a little bit, then we have less people defined as poor. But
it still doesn't mean that they can finish the month, as we say in here.
They're actually worse off because we only look at income when we speak about the poverty line, but the cost of living has risen so much that it's much harder for the poor today to make ends meet.
Rabbi Aikash, I want to check with you from Rabbis for Human Rights. I mean, you actually go around the world and you tell people that Israel is not just about security, correct?
Correct. Although we're a human rights organization and people first among human rights, well, Palestinians, people don't even realize half the time these statistics that there are so many people living in poverty inside Israel. Sometimes people start to connect a little bit when they understand that basically we're part of a worldwide trend. We've been moving over the last 20 or so years from a social welfare economy to a neoliberal outlook,
right,
in which we feel that we don't have responsibility for the poorest and weakest among us, unfortunately.
Which just seems to be, I think that some will say that that's the definition of capitalism in many ways. But I'm wondering, the reforms, by the way, that should be done. What needs to be done within the country of Israel to try and flip what seems to be a very disturbing, trend of, the poverty line, just, gathering more and more people under its belt, so to speak?
Well, as a rabbi, I would first say that we have to recognize and honor the image of God in every human being. I think that we need to enforce existing laws. For example, when you look at the incredible percentage of working families who are making less than minimum wage and therefore living under the poverty line, if we were only even to start enforcing the existing laws. Beyond that, we of course just had this last year the Aluf Committee to decide how to fight poverty. At first, everybody simply assumed that it would be another set of neoliberal recommendations from a neoliberal committee appointed by neoliberal ministers, but in fact, we actually succeeded in turning things around, and the recommendations are halfway decent. Not perfect, but halfway decent at least. And then, of course, the outgoing government said they didn't have the money to implement them, and so one of the challenges of the new government, if these recommendations would be implemented, we would go a long way to reducing poverty.
And really quickly to you, Eitan Regev, as we heard, you know what the reforms should be. But, I'm wondering out loud, do we have the time to implement them? Even with, with the new government, what are the dangers if this continues?
Well, dangers are that the savings of the average Israeli household are constantly diminishing. Today to buy a house and make ends meet, you need assistance, usually from the parents, but their savings aren't going to last forever. And when our generation is going to have to help its children, it's not going to be able to
have anything. It's a frightening thought, and I think, the headline from here is, the numbers, the report that came out, and maybe it's not all about security. Thank you for being with us. When we get back, America is convinced North Korea is behind the Sony hack. And for now, it's a war that only Hollywood is losing. First, though, the news. Welcome back. It's still Friday, December 19th, 2014. This is still the morning edition. Last I checked, sadly, I am still Yael Levi. And thank you for staying with us. It is December 19th. So Ron Friedman here as the Human Watch. But it's time for for the North Korean Sony saga. I'm going to try not to burst out laughing as I tell you the story. According to some reports, namely Fox News, the FBI is pointing a digital finger at North Korea for the recent hacking attack at Sony Pictures Entertainment. The North Korean link made by the American network, and actually several other networks, came shortly after Sony canceled plans for its December 25th release of The Interview, a comedy about the fictional assassination of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Now, getting Sony to pull the release of the movie had been one of the hackers' public demands, and Sony quickly followed suit. If the North was behind the hacking of the company, and my skepticism remains despite briefings from unnamed U.S. officials to several named U.S. networks, that it was centrally involved, experts say that still does not indicate an imminent risk to the audiences. Now, the U.S. President, Barack Obama, certainly did not seem overly concerned. Asked about the stern warnings of retribution targeted at screenings of The Interview, which invoked memory of 9/11 terror attacks, the U.S. President Barack Obama basically said, I think Americans can go to movie theaters, but still, the movie was pulled, and this is all that America is talking about. North Korea is yet to respond to all these rumors and suppositions, but they are denying any involvement. And before we break it down, let's take a look at Mandy Kogosowski's report and take it from there. The report will explain much better this entire saga. Let's take a look.
After 2 weeks of rumors and speculations on whether hackers for North Korea are behind the embarrassing Sony leak, which revealed so many shameful Hollywood secrets, Sony decided to nix the scheduled Christmas Day release of the movie The Interview.
The CIA would love it if you two could take him out. Take him out.
Take him out? Like for drinks?
No. Take him out.
Take out? Like to dinner?
Take him out to a meal?
Take him out.
Like on the town?
Party?
No, take him out.
You want us to assassinate the leader of North Korea?
Yes.
What? This seemingly innocent Judd Apatow parody has been at the heart of this saga, with new reports surfacing of planned bombings of movie theaters that will screen the film. Threats' credibility remains questionable.
People should not be afraid to go to the movies in Los Angeles. We have no credible threat. We are well aware of the emails that have gone back and forth, and we will take precautions that make sure that our movie theaters are as safe as we can make them.
While some argue the entire thing is a publicity stunt, others seem quite concerned.
I think before Tuesday, people could have seen this as the greatest accidental or intentional publicity stunt that a studio had ever waged for a movie. But I think that the tenor really changed. I think that this is now no longer a funny joke for them.
Kim Jong-un is now capable of nuking all of the West Coast.
And there's another element to add to the mix. This past September, Sony warned of a $2.14 billion loss this fiscal year alone, more than 4 times its earlier forecast, blaming it on the downturn in its mobile phones business. So what is the real story here? A publicity stunt perhaps blown out of proportion, a clear and present danger, or perhaps simply the plot of the next Hollywood blockbuster?
And thank God we're joined from California by I-24 News correspondent Tony Grant, Sir Grant. Okay. First of all, I'm glad you're there, because if anybody can help me make sense of this, I have been losing sleep over this story. I want to hear the reaction in the United States, because everybody's dealing with it in America today, aren't they?
Yeah, this is something that everyone truly is talking about. I mean, Cuba is literally yesterday's news. This has been bombarding both the airwaves, every TV channel I've seen. I'm going to hold up very quickly something from today's Los Angeles Times, which says unprecedented plot twists.
Okay.
The picture there of James Franco and Seth Rogen there playing their characters in the movie that's now been pulled from theaters. The backlash against Sony Pictures has been immense. And from every quarter almost, people are, from Jimmy Kimmel to op-eds in papers saying that the caving into these to this pressure and what it means.
Exactly. What it means for America. I mean, first of all, there's several things here that I find very bizarre, but I want to start with, the reports yesterday I saw that the FBI is blaming a digital finger. at North Korea, but there is no real proof. What do we know thus far about the hacking?
As far as the FBI's involvement in basically the White House saying now that this is a national security threat. So, I mean, that's coming from the top office in the land, so to speak. So I can't speak to all of the developments on that trail, which I guess is still a hot trail. But just in terms of the other elements to this, as far as just the fact that at movie theaters they're taking down the posters, the neon signs for the movie, of which the world premiere was just a few days ago in Los Angeles, I believe. It's going into the vaults. So there's reports now of leaks of certain scenes making it online. So this is going to become the hottest sort of bootlegged internet property, perhaps in cinematic history. Seth Rogen was arriving, I think, at LAX. I believe it was today, and some reporters tried to get some questions answered, and he looked like the most depressed comedian you've ever seen in your life.
No, but truth. I'm not laughing. Truth be told, actually, many have argued that this is the best publicity, and that's also the concern. Not the concern, actually, the theory behind it. This is a huge publicity stunt. I mean, at the end of the day, the North Koreans haven't really said anything, but when you say that there are also reactions in the United States against it, I mean, to do what? Go ahead.
Oh, as it said in the report, it did seem like a major publicity stunt or coup until the moment when Sony said, "Hey, yeah, we're pulling this from the movie theaters." At that point, things took a bit more of a sinister turn, because don't forget, in terms of legal issues that the studio, Sony, could potentially face if there were even the slightest problem at a movie theater. Back in 2012 with The Dark Knight, I believe, and there was the shooting at the movie theater in Colorado. There's still legal problems, to say the least, that are reverberating from that. So I'm sure the lawyers jumped in on this and had a field day and said to Sony executives, "Hey, you might take a big loss with this, but the bigger risk, if God forbid something should happen, could do much more financial damage." So there's that aspect as well.
No, completely. It all seems very, very bizarre. I keep waiting for somebody to come out in a press conference and tell us it was a hoax. That said, the fallback, speaking really quickly, though, about Sony itself, they lost a massive amount of money pulling that film, didn't they? I mean, do we ever...
Absolutely. I think there was a number mentioned in the report, and I don't want to repeat it for risk of getting the number wrong, but it's quite a hefty sum, to say the least. I mean, for sure, all the money that was spent on the film is they're not going to easily recoup it by going to Netflix or something like that. They've already said that they are not looking at any plans to release the movie in any format at this time. It looks like they kind of want this to disappear, and they seem to be forgetting that they're a movie studio in the middle of Hollywood with the world's attention focused on them and the actors. It can't go away. It's just sort of getting bigger and bigger.
No, bigger and bigger. Yeah, putting, especially, what part of the leaks is not just the movie, but also terrible things said about Angelina Jolie. This will never go away then.
Those leaks too. And it also bears mentioning very quickly that what some commentators have said is that Sony they should have been a little bit more clever and perhaps picked a fictitious villain for guys to go after in a plot, because this is apparently the first time that in a movie of this sort of caliber that a living leader has been actually fictitious.
No, maybe in a movie, but Tony, I mean, we actually did, we researched this story in depth yesterday, and one of the things that is very bizarre to us is that 30 Rock, a great American series, had an entire year of a plot line in which, the girlfriend of one of the characters is kidnapped by Kim Jong-il, I think the father of Kim Jong-un, and it's, a whole satire, and nobody threatened to, bomb NBC New York. So
I think what I read about that, and what people were saying was that because Kim Jong-un's father was so well established and so safe in his power perch, he didn't feel threatened. But Kim Jong-un is young, he's unseasoned, he's more vulnerable, so he, would be more prone to a little bit of a sort of nastiness, for lack of a better word.
Well, Tony Grant, no. In California, I want you to keep safe. Don't go to the movies, please.
My eyes are on the Hollywood sign for you.
Lovely. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. Definitely. It is the time for Hanukkah and the Spiral Viral Web Review, because as you've seen, Tony Grant is on a dangerous assignment in California. So Ron Friedman is here with the Web Review.
Hi.
I'm almost afraid to ask what you have for me.
Well, I hope you're not all Sony'd out, because we've got, I mean, the web is reacting to this in a huge way. I could have given you like hundreds of memes and videos and
whatnot,
posts and everything, but I actually chose something that has to do with it, but from a bit of a different angle. So there's a magazine online called Creative Screenwriting.
Okay.
And the person who wrote the screenplay for the interview posted an interview there, and I'll read out a few of his statements on the site. This is a man called Dan Sterling. He also worked on South Park and King of the Hill. South Park, which coincidentally also rips into Kim Jong-un and
tons of them, right? Exactly.
So here, this is what he had to say. When I set out to write the script for the interview, I didn't know that anyone would ever make the movie, and it certainly didn't occur to me that people we were making fun of would take it seriously. Turns out I was naive. They did take it seriously.
Oh, come on!
And
yeah.
But on a more thoughtful note, no film has ever sparked a war. Comedy makes fun of everyone. Comedians shouldn't be held accountable for acts of violence. If all countries made satirical movies about each other, and that was the only way we all fought, what a great world we'd live in.
I know, and this actually makes me say that if this is the next, phase in the wars between people, then I would like to take the United States on for making, Annie again. I'm personally offended. I'm personally offended, and I think we should be at war about that. But yes, okay.
All right, well, we'll move on. A different part of the world. Headline from Qatar. So we know that there's a World Cup being held there. It's controversial for a bunch of reasons.
Yes.
Here's a new one. So apparently migrant workers in Qatar get paid to be audience members at sporting events. They get, not much money, but they don't make much to begin with.
They're the extras?
They're the extras.
There's extras in football? Okay.
So, because Qataris like sports, but apparently not enough to actually make it out to the stadium. So they have to pay these people. They get $1 an hour, which, for them is reasonable
I'm trying to
pay.
think, yeah.
They probably
it's a terrible thing,
day.
But yeah.
And they put on the.
But did they get hot dogs? I think
they don't get hot dogs, but they do get free Wi-Fi, which is apparently one of the reasons that a lot of the people go there. It's a modern stadium, so it's accessible to Wi-Fi, and it lets them send
I'm trying to think
emails
that people who will take on a job that gives them $1 an hour, which is very minimum wage, but are attracted to it because there's Wi-Fi. Do you see the disparities?
Yeah.
I have nothing to eat, but I do have a cell phone.
Well, it gives them an opportunity to write home to their family.
True. No, actually.
These are all people.
I'm going to be the nasty person. You'll be the nice guy. What else? Okay.
All right. Next, crazy story. All right. So we have the headline up. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So a strange story. It's reported in the Galveston County Daily News.
Okay.
In one of ISIS's famous propaganda videos, a picture of a truck was caught on screen, and as you can see in the photo, or you can't see it's covered. Okay. Anyways, there's a phone number and a name of an American plumber, a Texan plumber. Nobody knows how this car got to Syria of all places, let alone this guy.
Texas City plumber's truck ends up in the Syrian war? Yeah.
Strange. So you see now they've got machine guns mounted on it, usually, I guess, pipes and
I know what
tools.
happened there. I know what happened there because, they always say the truck drivers in the United States who have to drive their trucks across country through the night, and they have to be on amphetamines to stay awake, and they completely lose it. So he's like, I'm going to drive this truck all the way to Syria.
Apparently this guy, his phone number also appears on the photo, and people started calling him up saying, calling him nasty names, maybe traitor, how did your truck get there?
I'm more afraid from getting a call from somebody in ISIS asking to come fix the bathroom.
I didn't think about that option.
There's that comes around. And what else?
All right, you know that there's a new series of Star Wars sequels coming out.
Yes, and I'm not happy about it.
You're not happy about it? Well, some other people might not be happy about it either, but we know that some of the stars of the original, 1980s shows are coming back. We've got Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher. Back? Yes, they're reprising their roles. No, not 900 yet. Let's say.
No, because they're going to come back as
It's a sequel, so it's the
older
them.
No, they're going to come back as Jabba the Hutt.
One person who's not coming back is Natalie Portman. The report we're seeing here on Enemy, she gave an interview saying that her appearance in the prequel series was damaging to her career, that for weeks, months afterward, nobody wanted to work with her. That's what she says.
But you know, if the calibers like Harrison Ford are coming back, well, yeah, you know what? I think ever since she married into a European Union, I'm kidding. That said, Ron Friedman, thank you so much for being with us this Friday. This was such a pleasure. And when we get back, Hall of Fame 2015 rock and roll will show us the class of 2015. First, though, some more of the morning headlines. And thank you for staying with us. Dyslexia is a horrible disease. It's December 19th, 2014. It's Friday. It's Friday, folks, and I've got Roni Stav in studio with me and Ziv Kitao, and I'm going to start with Beauty Before Brains. Ziv.
Yes.
Yes. So with Ziv Kitao.
Your yes was so sweet.
I know
yes.
that. Yes.
You just
Ziv
needed
Kitao.
to babble for a second.
Completely. He's our geek resident, but anything and everything
princess.
Yeah, no, the geek resident of the house, with anything and everything technological. Hit me.
Right. So before we have 2 movies and 2 tech news today. Now, the first item is something that we actually talked about. I think it was last year. We talked about an upcoming production of The Little Prince, a new movie. We talked about it when they
were planning it. They were thinking of doing it, and I love The Little Prince.
Yes,
one of the saddest books in the history of children's books, isn't it?
It's so beautiful and
it
so.
Is. Guy de Maupassant.
Yabba.
Who wrote it?
Anton.
I'm so.
Anton.
I have not slept in 2 years.
Chris. Anton Saint Chris.
The last name is too French for me. Too French for me. Anton. I know his name.
Anton.
And since
something.
I love this book, I'm like in first name basis with him.
Yeah. The Little Prince. And
so anyway, I have a little Prince of a Little Prince, like a little statue, and I have stuff on my desk at work.
Do you have the sheep?
I've got a sheep.
You got a sheep.
And
I have the rose and a thingy.
I got a rose.
Yeah.
I got other things.
Okay, that's all memorabilia. But
Now,
the film is coming out.
So the movie is coming out. It's directed by Mark Osborne, who did Kung Fu Panda, which is cool, but
Kung Fu Panda
it's not
was
exactly.
Great.
But it's not exactly Little Prince, and also SpongeBob SquarePants, which is also.
And he's doing the Little Prince.
And he's doing Little Prince.
It's more of a movie like for Tarek Malick.
Because I said what? The what?
Terrence Malick sounds like somebody who is more suited to do The Little Prince.
However, let's see. There's a
trailer. Let's take a look.
Let's see.
Oh, je suis là-haut. Bonsoir.
Un petit prince qui avait besoin.
J'ai volé à peu près partout dans le monde, jusqu'à ce qu'une chose miraculeuse se produise.
Oh my God!
Don't send something. Anyways.
Do you remember that before you continue? Do you remember the old The Little Prince movie? There was one.
Yeah, but it was real action movie.
Real people. I mean, human beings.
Human beings were actually in the movie. They were shot on film using.
And
people
they acted,
who were born and they acted.
And they did
anyway,
things.
So this movie is CGI and stop motion, and it looks beautiful. Now the thing is, for those who didn't understand, because this is the first time, and it came out in French. I don't know why, but then the English one should come soon.
Yeah.
It's going to be in several languages. Now the thing is, they created this engulfing story about the
I just
right?
realized that there's a little girl that's reading a letter.
She's really, what we didn't see is that she and her mom is like this power suit, very, oriented, I think a lawyer or something.
Woman.
And her daughter is very like her. And then this crazy old guy next to her, he sends her pieces of the book. So she learns about the Little Prince, and through that she learns how to be a little kid as well.
As opposed
which is
to
not
a hard-working, career workaholic mom.
Which is strange because it's not exactly the lessons that we come
Talk
from.
to strangers, strangers giving you things.
Yeah, the old man across the street sending you a letter.
But it is beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean the
striving to success in career is not.
And forgetting about your childhood.
Something here doesn't work. On the other hand,
Saint Azepri, that's his name. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I just couldn't. I couldn't.
Good. You said brain.
I said the brains and beauty.
You said brain.
You're the pretty one.
Booty.
And I'm the blonde.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anywho's, So that's going to be beautiful.
but it does
and
look beautiful.
the art for the sections where we see the story of the Little Prince are even more beautiful than the one that we
Really?
saw from the CGI. Now, next,
Yes.
onward, another movie animated one, this time from Pixar. The new Pixar movie Inside Out. I first learned about this one when I read Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, one of the managers of Pixar, the head manager. He's now at Disney because Disney bought Pixar and
Pixar, because Disney buys everything.
Control.
Disney, as we speak, Disney's buying us.
Probably.
But
you know the
He
thing.
bought us already.
Yeah, we're already.
The most
so
beautiful-
confused.
The most beautiful thing about this purchasing of Pixar was Steve Jobs led that, and part of
Right.
the deal was that actually, while Disney was the one purchasing Pixar, Pixar is the one running Disney. So that was cool.
No, that's a good deal. That's
That
kind
was
of
a
a
good deal.
that is a
And
good deal.
That's a
also,
Steve Jobs kind of deal.
Yeah, it's like you'll buy me, but I'll run everything. And
Give me the money,
you
I'm
know,
still in charge.
Right. So that's what it did. That's what it did. And it was great because now we see the new movies that come out of
Are
Disney,
still
right?
Pixaresque. Let's take a look.
Right.
First day of school. It was fine, I guess. I don't know. Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
Did you guys pick up on that?
Sure did.
Something's wrong. We're gonna find out what's happening, but we'll need support. Signal the husband.
Uh-oh, she's looking at us. What did she say?
What? Oh, sorry, sir. No one was listening.
Is it garbage night? We left the
No, I'm sorry. That just looked like dinner in my house. And I completely know what's going through his head now.
Yes.
And why I always get the line of, why? What did I do? Why are you looking at me like that?
So now you know it's not his fault. It's the little
It's not
people
what's
in his
little people in his head.
head.
Yeah.
So this is a Pixar movie, and it's going to be fantastic. As we saw,
And
this
the
is.
animation, as you said, is very Pixaresque.
No, this one is very, very Pixar. We saw the influence of Pixar on other movies in Disney, and also the story itself is very Pixar. I mean, Disney
down to
does
earth.
not
It's
rule
not
Pixar.
just,
It doesn't change.
Be
There
saved
isn't
by the
magical
prince.
Exactly.
Magical, be saved by the
moments.
prince. Everything is pink. If you're a girl, eventually he's going to save you.
Right,
And
so
you live happily
Pixar
ever
is
after.
very
Yeah.
there. They're doing their things, and this is going to be
and really
a
quickly,
great.
I'll just say, Pixar is
great
all about
fun.
relationships are hard, people. Okay, yes, moving on.
It's gonna be beautiful. The girl obviously has. We didn't see in the trailer, but the girl has a few of her own creatures.
Have her own creatures. Yeah.
No, yeah, here they are. No,
No,
this is
that's
his.
the men. That's
okay,
the men.
so
Okay,
they're like
moving
a
on,
mix of the mother and the father. So next one is science. People, NASA got
Woohoo.
more money than they asked for, which is a first in years, in
And
decades,
maybe they'll
in
start
millions.
researching space again.
So so that's a fantastic thing. Now this was like a last-minute call.
Right.
We got 2% extra, and not only that, but they were asked, for example, to spend not less than $100 million on research for Jupiter, and there's really
This is from the company. This is from the organization that shut down the shuttle missions, didn't they?
right, because
just a
they
few years
didn't
ago.
have money. But now Parliament and the government in the U.S. working with the Senate, working with everybody, they want this to happen. They want research to happen. They
They are
understand.
interested in Jupiter.
They're interested in Jupiter for some reason. I don't know why.
We don't know why yet.
Nobody knows.
Maybe Disney knows.
Maybe. Disney purchased the U.S. government.
Disney
and we're like,
purchases everything.
we're going to take Jupiter because we need someplace
We're
to
going
do.
to fly you to
Right.
Jupiter,
Exactly.
Disney.
It's going to be fantastic.
park.
And one of
Actually-
the experiments that probably maybe made the government do that, it comes from a private company that does space exploration, SpaceX. Their spaceship
the
Dragon.
Elon company? No.
Yeah.
It's
Elon
Elon's
Musk, yeah.
company.
They're going
I'm
into
so-
space and they're using flatworm. Do you know what's flatworm?
I have no idea. What is flatworm?
When you go to science school, to science class, the first thing that they teach you about this creature, which is immortal, basically, you can cut it up as much as you want. You can cut it down the middle, and
It
will
will
grow
never
two.
die.
It
It
will
will
grow
just
two
multiply.
two heads.
I don't want to tell you what
It
that
takes
looks
2
like.
weeks to regenerate, and they're going to do an experiment in space to see how that influenced them. And the thing is that if we learn more about them, we can cure cancer from that, because we will learn about regeneration. We will also be able, maybe, to become immortals. So this little thing, creature, disgusting little arrowhead thing, has
the potential of making us all live forever.
We'll just have to eat tons of them.
Live forever,
we'll just eat them. Eat them, and then they will grow inside of us and will regenerate.
You beautiful, beautiful thing. It's time to move to the intelligent person in the studio.
Let's go to the brains.
The brains, Ronnie Staub.
The brains.
The brains, Ronnie Staub. Culture, entertainment, everything that you should have known about this week. Take it away.
Anything. So the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has officially announced next year's inductees. It includes.
I'm always afraid.
You're always afraid? No, this one's good.
It's not like, it's not
Taylor
it's not,
Swift. Exactly. Okay. I was about to say Taylor Swift. It's like, but she's doing this one.
No, she's in the Rock and Roll.
No. And we'll talk about why they need to go years back, but it includes Lou Reed, Green Day, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Double Trouble, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Bill Withers and Paul Butterfield Blues and Band. They will all join the class of 2015 of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, Ringo Starr will be given an award for musical excellence, and the 1950s R&B group, The Five, will receive the Early Influence Award. No, so the whole thing is that you are eligible to be part of the Hall of Fame only 25 years after the release of your first album.
I'm going to stop you again for a second. Green Day released their first album 25 years?
In 1989. Yes, that was. I'm sorry.
She meant 2.5 years.
Yeah.
She didn't see the point in the 225.
I am not the brain.
I had this moment here.
I thought it was the brain.
2.5 years, not 25. Don't worry. You're young.
No,
yes,
you're
okay.
so young.
Yeah.
But it is really a great moment for Green Day because it is. That's the first year they are eligible for the award because it was 1989. And, they released the EP 2,000 Hours.
Yes.
And
And now I'm looking at it. To me, this is yesterday. I want to shoot myself in the head right now. Yes, okay.
Someone that doesn't want to shoot himself in the head is Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day that was saying, we're an incredible company and I'm still trying to make sense of this. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has always held something special for me. My heroes were in there. This is a great time for us to sort of reflect and look back.
Yes.
And all of this Now, Ringo Starr. So he was already inducted as part of the Beatles in 1988, but all the other bandmates, those three dudes, we kind of know about them a little bit, so they were already eligible and recognized for their solo career, and now Ringo is joining the party. So now,
what was Ringo's solo career?
What do you mean? He had that thing.
He had that thing.
That thing.
He had that thing. And
nice move, guys. Yeah, pulling out of that thing.
Remember when he went?
Ringo thing. That thing.
When he went on that tour
we have
and did that thing in the
you're
country.
Talking about you honestly remember?
I have no idea what
I'm talking about.
What's going on. I thought he vanished into nothingness.
That Ringo thing was
I'll
great.
remember in a second.
There's a second later. I'll Google it in it.
The Little Prince.
Yes. Moving on.
So everyone's super excited. Now in the event itself, it will take place on April 18th, 2015. And in the end of the show, all the artists that were inducted in that year are jamming together on stage. Super cool. Joan Jett, one of her biggest hits is I Love Rock and Roll.
Rock and roll.
So pretty cool.
That's
pretty
very,
cool to jam for it.
very, very cool.
Yeah, she was mentioning I always sort of kept that song away, but I think in this instance it would be a perfect instant to whip off and have people do it.
No, completely. I'm sure that that.
If there was ever a good time to do I Love Rock and Roll.
Because I'm sure when she gets on stage and people yell I love rock and roll, she's like, oh, shut up.
They should do the Britney Spears version.
Saying, it was my song too.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. Okay, moving on.
Go home.
Yep.
Guess who's not going to be in the Hall of Fame?
No, it's not going to be.
No. Let's hope.
Moving on.
Another list was announced. The National Film Registry of the Library of Congress. Same thing, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Totally same thing. They selected a new crop of movies that it deems culturally, historically, and aesthetically that signified enough for preservation. Among the 25 films that were selected are two cult favorites. One of them is Coen's brothers, The Big Lebowski. So cool, so wonderful. So many people were, I don't know, I was like, thank you.
Yes.
And John Hughes, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh my God!
Yes, totally.
Yes.
How cool is
I
that?
can go now.
How cool is that? I'm done. I'm out of the studio. Rock and roll.
Bueller.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
cool. So cool.
No, I mean, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, definitely a defining moment for Generation X and generations to follow, I think, right?
Yes,
and generations
absolutely.
to follow. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Bueller.
So beautiful moment. Other movies are Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan,
Really?
Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, Rosemary's Baby is I went to film school because of that film.
Really?
Yeah, aesthetically, if we're talking about like aesthetics in film.
Aesthetics and film and lighting and whatnot. I'll shut up. Okay. Yes.
Mel Stewart's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is part of it. Arthur Penn's Little Big Man.
Little Big Man's an amazing film. Arthur
it
Penn.
is.
That's with Dustin Hoffman. Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely morning. I mean, lovely moment in the morning for us film buffs and film students.
Yes.
I'm not a student.
Yes.
I
it
just
was
love
beautiful.
I love the arts. Moving on.
Yeah.
Real
Okay.
quick.
So we're very happy. Good job, everyone.
Yes.
Good job, everyone. Now another film that it has
40
been.
seconds. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
really quickly.
Okay. Beetlejuice 2 maybe will happen.
What?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Okay, that was the breaking news of today. Sadly, all the time we have. Do not forget to check us on Facebook, Twitter, all those social networks. Monday we'll be back. You have to tune in because Beetlejuice may have a sequel, and we'll do an in-depth reportage about that. But thank you for being with me. Have a lovely week, and that was it. Yeah.